Hello and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets US Open Edition. Skylar, Hoke here, Tom Jacobs. How we doing, my friend?
Oh yeah, all good. Missed you last week at the Scandinavian Mix, but I know you had a nice time away celebrating birthdays and things like that, which is always needed at this time of year, especially busy golfing schedule. So thank you to Barrow for jumping in there. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have the best of weeks at the Scandinavian Mix, I'm not going to lie. And then I was close to the Canadian Open, but not close enough. So yeah, it was interesting. It's great to see Dale Whitner win. One thing I would say, someone that's been on the podcast for us.
Right?
Yeah, he's been on there before. Messaged him yesterday just to say well done. He's just over the moon, which you can imagine. It's just a really nice place for him to break through, really. Like you think about the actual type of event and the history behind it, or the recent history behind it, I guess. What it means to golf. He's the type of person you want to win that. So really nice to see. Other than that, I think it's probably full steam ahead at Los Angeles Country Club this week.
Yeah, I agree. Again, thanks, Baroff, for filling in. If I was on, I probably would have picked way too many of the ladies' side. I thought one of these years, man, they're going to really juice it up to have, obviously Lynn Grant overperformed or, just absolutely dominated the field a year before last. So interesting that didn't play out as well. I know some of the ladies, Ann Van Dam played really awesome. Kind of intrigues me always. It's a fun event. Unfortunately, Sean Crocker decided to show up a week after selecting him. So that was cool to see him back in the places. So happy for that. And it reminded me a year ago that I was definitely in on Sean Crocker at the U.S. Open after he qualified. And, I love the U.S. Open. It's probably my favorite major of the year personally, just because I love the qualifier nature. I love the golf courses that we get to play year in and year out, just these new unique tests, especially what we're here looking at LACC. Do you have any mistakes or kind of what you're looking into when it comes to kind of fit? I think for me, man, I don't know. It's just a different U.S. Open than what we normally see. What are your thoughts on the course?
I think for me, what I love about it is the uniqueness of it. The fact that it is kind of private and we don't see much of it. We've seen it at the Pac-12 Championships and we've seen it at the Walker Cup. It's not going to play like that. There's been kind of comparisons to what you can do off the tee at Augusta, what you can do at St Andrews in terms of creativity around the greens. Those are kind of major championships to look at recently. I think that if we're going to talk about kind of majors that may lead into it, probably Shinnecock would be one of them. But it's a lot of guesswork, right? Like I think ultimately this is an interesting Sky. I've got to get your thoughts on this. Like, and this is not to bash anyone that was on the Max Homa train because it made perfect sense at the start. But like, this is not meant to be anything like California courses. Like, it's not meant to be anything like Torrey Pines. It's not meant to be anything like Riviera. So are we going to get stuck into the California kind of narrative, or do you think we need to stray away from that?
I hope people get sucked into it. For me, no, like I agree. Like, this is as unique of a test that you're happening to drop into the middle of Los Angeles compared to Riviera to Torrey. It's not what is it? It's Bermuda everywhere. The greens are bent grass. We have this, just a different overall. And even from the Opens, I loved your Augusta Cup. I think that's like the best. If it was a simple way to describe it, I think which is not, but like a shorter Augusta, like a shorter where, even the driving may not matter. I think approach in is going to be as important as ever. It's not a bomb and gouge. The only fear I have, and I'm saying this again, we're recording on Mondays. I've listened to some content early on. I've dug in quite a bit. It seems that every person is on the same page. So maybe there's ways, or if you want to build certain structures, we can talk about how the DP World Tour guys can fit into that. Because there's definitely some interesting ones that are playing here. And if it was a typical U.S. Open track, some would fit into that bill, maybe more than LACC. But still, I really think this is how you win GPPs. This is how you set yourself up for some long placement opportunities. And we're going to do the same thing that we did last time, where we just kind of stick to our guys and preview who we think could, be on that first page of the leaderboard. They're a lot of these guys are triple digits and beyonds. But 6Ks, you have to fill out some of your rosters with overall. So I think that's kind of my thoughts on the course. If I would, I guess, determine a way that I would think about it, in one word, it would be just creativity, right? Do these golfers have the creativity all across their game to be able to accomplish this. And we can kind of go through where we land. Last time we spoke a lot, not a lot, but we focused on some Hatton conversations, some Fleetwood and Lowry. More I've thought about that. Yes, the Ryder Cup is coming up, but they're not our DP World Tour guys right anymore.
No.
Like
I think that was born out of like, because in previous years we've had guys that have played a lot more on the DP World Tour that have chances of winning majors, and we are struggling for that. I think that was what that conversation was born out of, right? Like we wanted to give you the guys that are European and Ryder Cup hopefuls that can win a major. But no, I think this time it is important that we just stick unique to DP World Tour. Like Pat and Jeff will have conversations, and Tambo and people like that this week that we'll cover the rest of those guys. Like, let's talk about the guys that are really, our unique kind of view on things, and even why we're going to play those players. So I think there's probably half a dozen that I feel confident in kind of talking about. There's one that I think we should flag as, or I think I'm going to flag as someone that may not do very well, who you might expect to. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good conversation.
And I mean, scrolling through pricing, I really don't think there's anybody above $7,000 that you would classify as a D. Oh, I guess there's one.
One.
And we'll start. Victor Perez, right?
Yeah,
Victor Perez at 7,300. What are your thoughts?
Great place to start. I think he's going to miss the cut.
Okay.
He's played three US Opens, and he's missed the cut every single time. He's never been close. Like, I think he's like the closest he's got is like 4 strokes. He was awful with his irons last time out. At the KLM Open, and he was the favourite, wasn't he, that week, or at least one of the favourites. I know you can't hold that too much against him, and ultimately the reason he's up here is because he finished 12th in the PGA Championship. But this is, as much as we talk about Augusta and St Andrews and things like that as like comps, and if St Andrews kind of gets thrown in there, the Victor Perez is going to come up. But ultimately, this is a US Open, and the US Open is set up by the USGA, and they're very similar in what they try and do every year. And Perez has just never made it, right? Like, he's just never done well. So I think this is an opportunity to, because he's the first Euro guy that people are going to see, and it's probably the person you've got the most confidence in terms of an all-round skill set. I think that's the first person people want to click in that respect. Maybe not with the people that are around him in terms of like full kind of like GPPs and things like that, but if people are trying to get unique, they might go to Perez, and I think it's a mistake.
He's just expensive too, right? $7,300. Also, we withdrew from the week after the KLM. I don't think there was any clarity on recovery from that, right? It was kind of a Tuesday withdrawal that was hidden. I believe I'll pull up. He posted something when he withdrew. But yeah, I just don't think there's any reason to be paying that type of money for it. Sad to say, I withdrew with some back discomfort and nothing serious. You just never know with backs still.
Yeah.
But it could be. But for that price, I totally agree that I will be finding.
I just think even if he was fully healthy, I wouldn't go there. So it's great almost that the decision's even further taken out of your hands, but I think he's probably a little bit hurt as well. So I think the next person that 7,100.
7,100, yeah. So we're starting there, right? I agree with you. If you're thinking of somebody who's got power, who might have some creativity, who maybe grew up on courses, I've even heard like Royal Melbourne as a comp to the type of undulation and skill set and different things. Maybe you're growing up playing some Aussie golf. Ryan Fox is definitely intriguing. You highlighted or we discussed, right, him as a kind of an unknown heading into Oak Hill. And I believe he outperformed kind of what we were thinking from basically some time off coming into that event. So what are your thoughts on Fox?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I think we spoke about him maybe even a couple of shows ago after that PGA Championship, and just a sense of how good he's been on the PGA Tour this season. Like he's just been brilliant. And when you actually look at his major championship performances, they're nothing special, but he's made 4 or 5 cuts at the PGA Championship. And he's only made 1 cut in the US Open, but I just think he's a far better player now, and he's getting comfortable in these situations. Tied 26th at the Masters, tied 23rd at the PGA. He's followed up with 21st at the Charles Schwab, 30th at the Memorial, 27th at the Players. These are all elite level field of golf. And what is it? One event at Valero where he missed the cut, or he was really poor with his irons. But other than that, he's been rock solid with them since the start of the year.
It's the only event on the PGA Tour this year that he has lost strokes with approach. So that means he's gained in 7 out of 8. He gained in off the tee 7 out of 8. He has gained approach around the green in 4 of 8, and on the greens in 6 of 8. I mean, that's strong for 7,100 for somebody who likes it. I guess I don't really know if we'll get that wind this week. It doesn't seem that way. Distance isn't going to hurt here. It might not be a reason to play, but what, he was 26 at the Masters too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like definitely into a new discussion. And I think deservingly so. He's not in the 6Ks this time around, but yeah, I have a lot of interest in playing Ryan Fox in DFS.
And what are your thoughts? Because there's kind of a bit of conflicting of like opinions on this as to whether you can afford to miss the fairway really wide or you have to be 2 or 3 yards wide. Like, do you think it's one that you do have to be relatively close to the fairway, or do you think you can blast it wide?
I don't think it's going to be like a total like spray and pray, bomb and gouge to that degree, but I think the fairway, like, you're also not going to be like a stroke penalty if you miss a fairway. To me, like, some of these fairways are so big that being on the right side of the fairway versus the left side of the fairway with the way it's sloped may give you a blind shot, maybe more difficult of approach, but you're not hacking it out of the rough to 30 yards in front of the green and then hope you get up and down or you're going to bogey. Like, I think you still have an ability if you spray the driver. I guess I don't want to say spray the driver. If you hit it okay, if you're off the planet and short, you're not going to succeed here. But I think Fox's game is totally fine.
Because the criticism of Oak Hill was like you could hit it further offline. You were better off being there than you were like 2 or 3 yards into the rough, right? And
that's the answer. I think it's different than that.
Yeah, so I think you do need to be closer to the fairway, but I don't think I never view Fox as this kind of really wild driver. Like, he's not accurate, but he's not wild. So I have a lot of faith in him. I think that he can rein it back where he needs to if he needs to, and I just love the progression. Like we were saying, what do we reckon that his form is akin to what he would do? He would be like top 5, 10 every week on the DPI tour for sure. He probably would have picked up a couple of wins, I think, since going from the Bay Hill onwards. Obviously, he was playing Europe earlier in the season, but I think Fox is great. And although there's a couple of other players, I mean, like, obviously we're not talking about so much for DP World Tour benefit, but Sepp Straka is going to be going for the Ryder Cup, and I think he's an interesting one. But those two guys, I think, make a lot of sense at that price range.
Totally agree. And even though there was the big announcement last week, we'll probably spend some significant time discussing about things. I'm not going to loop any live guys into our conversation on this. And we close out for before. There's definitely some that I think could be intriguing. I'm not really set on anything as of now, but I'm going to, again, keep us pace, because if you get me off pace here, Tom, we're talking, Corn Ferry Tour. We're going to be talking the minor league golf tour and Olin.
I know. Well,
like, we're going to get deep.
I honestly think there's going to be a live golfer that can win this week. So that's a conversation that will be on Lost for Words later, and I'm sure you'll have a discussion about it. But just reference it. Like, I don't want to get into the conversation, but like, it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. And I'd love to have a conversation with you about it, with this merger and things like that at some point. I think there's a lot still to unravel with that, and what's it's going to do with golf. So we'll talk about that. We'll come back to that at another point. But let's keep on track. And also the one. The other one I wanted to mention was the Corn Ferry guy that won last week, whose name I definitely can't pronounce, so I can't wait for you to pronounce.
Oh, yeah.
The Belgian amateur.
So Adrian Dumont de Chazart, I believe it is. Or
something like that, right? And he has played in the US Open before. Like, I know he's not playing this week, and it's not particularly relevant, but like, it's interesting that he's got major experience already.
So I wonder if I saw, I think it was Daniel Rappaport tweeting about like Aberg and Dumont Duchart, they have to have a European card, right, to be a rider. Like,
so they're going to have to come and play here.
Start making some starts. I guess they have status already. It depends, right? What's their importance? Is it the Ryder Cup this year, or is it securing cards? Even though they all have cards for next year too, locked up. But I guess this guy Adrian can make his way already to the PGA Tour in the fall. Yeah,
it'd be interesting. So, I mean, look, they've got nothing to lose by playing a couple of events over here and trying to get themselves European status as well. Anyway, 7K, Minwoo Lee. Flat.
Back to track.
He and that was me that took us off base there, so blame me. Minwoo Lee, I think we had this conversation every time at the majors, right? Like, we just believe that he has the talent to contend at these, and I don't think there's anything particularly about this course that I love, other than I think you can have a little bit of freedom off the tee. And the creativity that we talked about, if that comes into play at kind of Augusta and St Andrews, like we've spoken about, I think that only leans into him. And 18th for the PGA Championship, right? Like, the most recent evidence we've got, and that was with a bad iron week as well, or a relatively bad iron week for Minwoo Lee. So that would be my only concern, is that his iron play has been struggling for a long time. But if he finds it at some point, you don't want to go into the US Open trying to find your game, but his off the tee is rock solid. His short game's great. So if he can just have a better iron week, I think he's in great spot.
I think Minwoo Lee is like the absolute prototypical US Open player that I would want every single, when it is a winged foot, when it is, or even Oak Hill. We talked to him about a lot. Oak Hill, and he showed up there out of form, right? Like hadn't played well basically since the Players Championship. And he's still top 20s at major. I believe going into Augusta, what was that, last year, right? He was miscut, 26, miscut. Then he basically did nothing in the top 21 the Open. Like, he just shows up and plays well at the biggest of stages. So I love Minwoo this week.
He already feels like a big game hunter, which is weird because he's not really got the status to do that. Like, I don't think he's someone that can just rest on his laurels and only turn up at the big events, but it just seems to be the attitude he's taken already. Like, that's what he wants to do. And I think you see that a lot with like Australians. They pack their schedule around the biggest events, and not to kind of group him in with everybody else, but that's kind of what Day and Scott and that did early parts of their career as well. So I think, look, he's got the skill set. Whether his irons are going to come to if his irons are on fire, then he's going to be.
That's the only thing that holds me back, like from pushing it or maybe betting him outright, would be like, can those. But his improvement in the irons on the DP World Tour when he had those first starts was really, really good. So it's kind of shocking to see how much they fell off. But yes.
When we were on him at the Abu Dhabi Championship, like, he was flagging everything.
Yes.
He was unbelievable. So it strikes me as strange. I mean, the only time he's actually gained strokes in approach recently, he slightly did at the Charles Schwab, but was at Bay Hill where he missed the cut because everything else let him down for once. So he can do it. It's just maybe he's putting a bit of focus on his around the green game or whatever. I don't know, but we shall see. I think that's the concern, but he's got the high upside.
Yeah. So, and I still think the Aussie parallel too. Joseph Lamagna made that. He was talking with Andy Lack, and he said that there's just a comfort level sometimes in LA or these type of tracks even that these Aussies love. So I think that's something. I mean, again, we said we're not talking live, but I think Cam Smith is a dream setup here, right? Like, that's the type of style that I'm thinking with creativity. So we've now mentioned Fox and Minwoo as, countrymen with them, with Cam. So I think it's pretty interesting.
I don't think you can have that conversation without talking about Lucas Herbert then.
Yeah, that's another one where he performed, I think, I would say over expectations at the PGA Championship. T40 wasn't great, but he's like Minwoo light in the skills, right? He hits it far. He's a world-class putter. He might not chip it as well, but the irons are the biggest question. I think I rank them Minwoo, Fox, Herbert of the three for me, and I think that's.
I think right now I think it's Fox, Minwoo, Lee, Herbert for me, but I think overall in terms of what we think we're going to do in the future, it'd be the other way around, as you said.
Yeah. So I'm not as gung ho just because I think the iron. I guess he approached it a little bit better the last couple times out, but I think the irons upside just hasn't been shown like the other two guys.
And like, he's a player that doesn't like generally find his irons. He does the week he wins, but it's like, it's rare, isn't it? So like, I wouldn't count on it happening. Whereas with Minwoo Lee, I've seen him do it multiple times. So I thought he was worth mentioning. And the guy next to him is Adrian Moronka, 67. I don't know if I've skipped anyone here, Sky. I'm just going down the list. I mean, Jordan Smith was the person.
I'm going to say Jordan Smith. Do you have any interest there?
None. No.
I agree with you. Disappointed because I would have felt. I guess he was better at the Porsche. His ball striking was really, really good there. But his short game is to no caliber in order to do this. Where was the 2017 PGA? Was that Quail Hollow? Yeah. He performed well at Quail Hollow, but hasn't done anything else in years since.
Just strikes me Quail Hollow as a pure driving test, right, which kind of leans into his skill set. Yeah. And I think where you've got to be a bit more creative and a better short game here, it's not going to work for him. So as much as it looks good on paper, probably not for me.
Yeah, I think we can pass on him. We talked Kitayama a little bit. We loop him in with the Herbert and the guys. I'm not as much intrigued by Kurt here. And then to your point, Adrian Moronk, 6,700. an extremely disappointing miscut for me last week. I was very in on Maroc, missed it on the number, right? I think he drove it quite well, just couldn't really do much else. But comes off the top 5 at the KLM. PGA was okay. Makes the cut, ball strikes it well. What do you think on Maroc?
I think it's great that he missed the cut last week. Not
Okay.
obviously like for you last week, but like I think it's great that he missed the cut for this week, because I think he'd have been really popular at 6,700 if he'd been going into it with that, decent effort at the PGA, the win at the Hander, and now he's missed a couple of cuts at the Colonial and Memorial. I feel like there's going to be a slow kind of softening on him, but he gained an approach and off the tee at Memorial. It was only a really poor short game that held him back. I don't know that he's got the kind of creative flair that these Australians have that we've already mentioned, and I think he is very prototypical. But if you're talking about total driving and what you want at a typical US Open venue, then Adrian Meronk fits, right?
Yes, and that's the point of, if you are going on style or leaning in, I absolutely, and he's got a well-rounded game enough that he has shown his chippings improve this year. He does gain with the putter. I don't, and he won in Australia, I guess, if we're making that parallel a little bit too, right? I'm not in love with him compared to the other guys, but there is, $300 does make a difference. I think he probably is priced right with those guys almost always.
Yeah, like I think there's a discount on him because of the last couple of weeks, and I think when you look at the fact he gained in the areas you want him to gain last time at Memorial and missed the cut, or the Canadian Open as well. The Canadian Open stats are up here, but I don't know. It's tough. I don't have massive confidence in him, but I think from a game theory perspective, I'd like to go to him rather than some of the others we've spoken about already.
Yeah, that's fair. When I also would extremely go to him versus, I think we can basically rule out Jens Dantorp is 6,700. They're off. He's a Jens truther, but this price for him compared to that. He had one good week and then a U.S. Open qualifying. He had a good year last year. Off on Jens. Thurston Lawrence. When's the last time we've really seen him on a leaderboard? When he won, in South Africa in December, probably. I guess he was 14th, but he has been, sad for that. Thristy has not been anything.
Not good. I think the next conversation is this kind of trio at 6,600. Two guys I want to talk about, one that you want to talk about. So,
is Matthew Pavon one of those guys?
No.
Okay, throw him out. Okay, you go first.
Did you want to talk about him?
No.
Okay, cool. So I think one of them is Romain Langasque. He's been playing really solidly for a good period of time now. I've basically, it'll be coming out at some point soon, I've taken him over Victor Perez in the top Frenchman market. And that's basically based on the fact that he was 39th at the Masters as an amateur in 2016. He was 20th at Winged Foot. He was 34th at Winged Foot in 2020, which is a Gil Hanse redesign, which is also the same case this week. I know we don't think he's going to play like Winged Foot, but it's actually, when you think about Winged Foot and Romain Langasque, you wouldn't put the two together. So actually, if you think about that, was probably an overperformance. It may suggest that US Opens suit him, but he needs one a little bit like this week, where the distance won't matter so much. So for me, I think Langasque, the way he's playing, the solidness to his game, I think at 6,600, he's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, he basically has gotten to that upper echelon of the DP World Tour guys from a ball striking standpoint. Extreme good irons at the KLM, very good off the tee at the Porsche. His short game at the Italian Open was excellent. Probably 7, 8 top 25s in his last 12, 13 events. Intrigued by him. I wouldn't just confident, but
no, I just see him as a solid cut maker.
Yes,
because he's done it he's played 2 majors in the US and he's made the cut in both. And one was as an amateur. And I think this US Open is better than Winged Foot for him, and it was a Gil Hanse. There's got to be some sort of relevance to USGA setups and Gil Hanse redesigns to suggest that we could see something from him that week. So I liked that. And then the other one, I think, is Padraig Harrington. I think we've got to have a Harrington discussion.
What was the last time? It was Kiowa, right? When he finished inside the top 5.
4th with Larry, wasn't
he? Yes. Yep. He hits it a long way as an old man, right? He can do the rest of the way in. Anytime we get in, what was he, 10th at the Valero? Numbers tee to green line weren't bad at the PGA. Expand on it. What are you at?
I just think for me, this is a player. You've already mentioned the 10th at the Valero. This is a player that's proven, even in advanced his years, that he can hang with these kind of fields and made the cut at the PGA as you referenced, gained in 3 of the 4 metrics. He made the cut at the Arnold Palm with a really bad putter. He made the cut at the Honda with the really bad iron. So it seems to be there's always 1 or 2 things off each week. But we're talking about a person that's been ultra competitive on the Champions Tour already, just finished second at the Senior PGA Championship. I'm surprised how long it's been since he played in the US Open. Like, he hasn't played in the US Open, I don't think, for, I don't know, like 10 years maybe. It's been ridiculous. 2013 was his last US Open, but he finished 21st.
What I would say too, that PGA championship on the senior side was actually way more impressive than it might come across. Or he lost in playoff to Stricker. Stu Cink was 16 under. Those guys were 18 under. Y.E. Yang was 11 under. The next closest was 9 under. So they were basically virtually 7 shots clear of the field. I wouldn't be teeing up or playing Steve Stricker when it comes to this big of a test, but Harrington's type of, I mean, he was out driving Stricker by like 50 yards.
Yeah, like he is the player. He's still the modern day player, but he's got that. Like, you look at his last 4 US Opens: 22nd, 45th, 4th, 21st. Now, I know we're talking about someone that did this in 2010 and 2013 when he was much younger, but we don't have any other evidence of what he could do in US Opens. Like, he was historically a pretty good US Open player. He had like 4, 5 top 10 finishes in the US Open. He's got the driving, to your point, longer than, I mean, top senior. He's longer than, I guess Phil is long enough. But whereas, like, I think Phil's expertise at Augusta came into play and he had 1 good round. Like, Harrington's been good everywhere, or decent enough everywhere. He was in contention to win on the DP World Tour already in the season.
I was betting him at like 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
You know,
like he was 4th at Abu Dhabi. He was 25th at Ras Al Khaimah. He's had 2 seconds on the senior tour. He's been 10th at the Valero, where he's great in pretty much all facets, and then he makes the cut at the PGA. I think he makes the cut. So do with that what you will at 6,600.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. You kind of sold me in that parallel. But my favorite play of the bunch is, gosh, Tom, I have such a mental block saying this. I have to say the other name first.
Do you want me to say it? It's
Pablo Larrazabal. I nailed
perfect.
it.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yes. So
I'm glad I didn't take that away from you.
It throws me off every time. So this is just a simple fact. Pablo he's just a winner, right, Tom? I mean, he shows up basically. He's virtually here with 2 wins, back-to-back starts. In the middle of that, he flew over to Oak Hill. What did he do at Oak Hill, right? He was probably the most impressive player in the top 10. Like, that stood out to me. Like, I would have never dreamed in a million years that Pablo would be anywhere near a leaderboard there. And he fell off afterwards, right? It wasn't great. I think he hit 2 fairways in the first round and still was top 10. I mean, a legit world-class short game. And if I think this course is rewarding creativity, and I'm interested in guys like Spieth and Cam Smith and Patrick Reed, like guys that can just get it done in a different manner, I have to be in it. Pablo, it was nice to see a made cut for him at that event too, because it was the first time he's made a cut in a major since 2012. But it's hard pressed for me to think that there's much more upside than guys. And I mean, he's a 4-time winner in the last 2 years, right? Like, he just, in that top of the leaderboard, you can trust him at any time, almost always. So I think that type of game and creativity plays here. From I'm trying to think, like, what I haven't seen the props all the way out yet, right? They're just starting to, like, I don't know how much I am intrigued on Rahm this week. Trying to think who is all in that top Spanish market, right? It's going to be Rahm, it's going to be Sergio, it's going to be Pablo, it's going to be another guy we'll talk about, and then Puig.
So it's weird, right? So Larrazabal was never good at majors in his career, like in his pomp. Like, his best finish was like 30th at the Open Championship. But there's probably a case to be made that he's better now than he ever was.
Oh yeah.
Like I know he's always been a winner, and he's beaten Sergio, Montgomery, Rory in his first 3 wins, beat Stenson. Like, I guess probably not when you consider the people that he was beating earlier in his career, but like, he wasn't a player that went and played the Masters every year and missed the cut every year, or played the US Open every year and missed the cut every year. Like, he's played 1 US Open in his career, and that was in 2014. He's played 0 Masters. He's played a few PGAs, and he's made a couple of cuts, one of them being the one you just referenced. I think he makes the cut. I don't know what the upside is on him.
I don't know, man. It just feels
Like,
like
do you believe he can like top 20?
I do. I'll probably bet him
Yeah.
top 20.
Yeah.
Like, and like I'm not. Again, this is me just being, you know, a complete like fool in the sense that like if he's there on Sunday on a leaderboard, I don't think he's like scared. You know, like he's just fun to be around. I think like he could be in a Ryder Cup, like we talked about. Like he would be great in that setting because of what? Because of an electric short game that delivers. So I think it's just of courses that I could dream up for Pablo. This is one where I'm like, all right, and I can never get him right. Right, he's tough to nail, but I really think this would be the skill set that would play into it.
I mean, look, these guys that we've spoken about here are legitimately, if any one of them do well, are going to win you things, right? So they're volatile, but I can see the ones we mentioned just being relatively safe, like in terms of making cuts. Which is
I think there's a significant drop off from here below. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So you're looking at 6,500. There's Forsstrom. Forsstrom was one of the two with Langosk that earned his spot from kind of the standings over the last little bit. No interest. Okay.
No.
Forsstrom. Next would be Ross Fisher. You're always a Ross Fisher.
Yeah, I'd love to think Ross Fisher can do it, and maybe given how the kind of speech you've just given on Pablo Larrafa, maybe I should be doing the same with Ross Fisher. Because this is a guy that's, actually played really well in major championships. I think one year he actually had that ridiculous title that you get for having maybe like the lowest scoring average or something. Like it wasn't that, but he had something. I can't remember what year.
He's been so bad.
2009, he was like 30th, 5th, 13th, and 19th in majors. He did something that year. That 5th was at the US Open in 2009. He's not played in many since, and he has been bad. That's the negatives. Is the positives that he can get hot with the driver? Yes. I cannot, with good conscience, advocate playing Ross Fisher.
Yeah, I agree. So then you come up with a couple of golfers that I have bet quite a bit. I still think, for me, I don't think I prefer Pablo substantially. Dion Germaheis, coming off of 15th, the third, qualifying the Open qualifier, he had a 10th place prior to that. Really, really good putter. Not much else. I just think it's just such a leap when you get to him. And then Alejandro Del Rey. Now, Del Rey, I wouldn't be surprised. He might be trying to think if he played here at LACC before. Because how old's Rom? Ron played here as a freshman, I believe. Because I don't think they do Pac-12s anymore at LACC, do they? It was just when...
No, it was just that one time when Homer and...
Yeah, so I don't think Del Rey played here. But Del Rey, I'd almost... So this would be the angle, I guess I would say. Because Del Rey's here, and then I don't want to skip over Wilco.
Okay.
Thinking of skill sets in that manner, where you're going to play somebody... If this is winged foot, if this plays out like winged foot, if this plays out like... something like, I remember playing Wilco when he qualified at Torrey, I believe it was. Like, if there's one thing that you need out of those guys, Del Rey is just as long as them. So I don't think I'm fully writing off those two, just on a pure lineup of Wilco, Gordon Sargent, like Alejandro Del Rey, guys that are going to hit 350, and that's all it's going to matter. Because for all we know, the USGA could have that angle.
This is the thing. Like, I think you have to factor that in, and that's why I said about what I said with Victor Perez and being against him, and these kind of all these noisy comparisons that you hear about courses that we've never seen, like legitimately. I know there's been like Andy Lack's been there and played there and all those sorts of things. Like, I get it from that perspective, but like this has never been set up by the USGA, and they are just steadfast in what they do, and it's the same every time, and we know what that requires, and it's driving. And with Del Rey, he's missed one cut this season.
Yeah,
it's so solid, and he's an Arizona State guy. Like it's a West Coast thing, so we don't know how comfortable he could be over here. Like he could definitely be one of these guys that has a good week here, goes and gets an invite in the Corn Ferry and plays well somewhere there, and all of a sudden he's on the PGA Tour and we lose another one. Like it's ridiculous to think how quickly these people's careers can change, and I don't think we know the upside of him just yet, but he's a winner. Like he's won the Challenge Tour already. He's been third at the Singapore Classic this season on the DP World Tour, and he's got the skill set you want. I think I'm more confident in Del Rey than I would be in Nienaber.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm trying to see if I could grade out Del Rey's distance. Yeah, I mean, he's basically top 10 in the world when it comes to distance. Like, he's probably longer. He's longer than Minwoo. Like, I think he's like truthfully like Wilco, Rory, Bryson, like these guys. Like, I think he's like right there with them. So I think that would be the angle. If you're gonna really look for a sleeper that has parallels, yes, I think, and that's the last one, right? But we don't have a long list of DP World Tour guys for this week.
That's what I mean. Like, this is why we've talked about the other people in the past, because there isn't a long list. But I think what we've done is talked about. We spent more time at length talking about the people in this section and giving the reasons for and against, so that there is no questions asked now, right? I guess your guy Barkley Brown's 6K minimum.
Oh, are we gonna be able to throw that one in there? Yeah, he's like I'm hoping to do a podcast in the future, kind of previewing some of these amateur guys as like what we did the closeout of the 2022 calendar year. Kind of do that for guys who are gonna get spot starts and different things, and the U.S. Open will give us some good lines into there. But there, I could go on some rants, and I'll probably tweet some things this week. You can find me at Skyhook DFS. In regards to the amateurs or Cornberry Tour guys and things that pop a little bit. Went on a little bit of kind of a thread this morning, kind of overviewing major performance. Fun to see some of these guys. I would have wished Bob got in the field. Would you have been interested in Bob at all? Just because he had the past history, right?
Yeah, no. I'm so done with Bob. Like, I think everyone needs to be done with Bob for a little while, and then he'll be good again. Like it. Every time people want Bob to be good, he's just not. I don't know what it is. Like, I think he's still a bit. Is he like injured?
He probably is. Yeah, I mean, he wears that wrist tape or whatever he's wearing. Right?
Yeah, like I think he's injured. Like, missed the cut at the Scandinavian, missed the cut at the PGA.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. He's such a good golfer. He's just so frustrating. Yeah, it's a good job he's not here, because then we don't have to think about
for sure. All right, well, we'll wrap it up here, but I want to say if you are one of the podcast listeners or you need an audio format, you can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets The Mix. Mayo Media Network supports us. We appreciate you guys. Rating, reviews, subscribe goes a really long way. Love always seeing the comments and support, and I really do think there is a guy or two we're going to have in our player pools that'll make a huge difference on that leaderboard. So if you had to give, I guess, 2 conviction plays, Tom, who are your 2? Because I think we easily got to 3 last time. I don't know if we can say 3 here, but who for you would you be feeling confident in?
I'm going to go with Ryan Fox at 7,100. Yeah. And then to give one slightly further down, I think I really intrigued by Harrington at 6,600.
Okay. All right. I like it. I think, I guess Minwoo would be the one I am the most confident in that manner. For me, though, if I'm going to go deeper, the next one would be Pablo. Pablo at 6,600. Pablo Larrazábal. I'm feeling good about that right now. So Larrazábal would be the one. And then if I'm really digging in, I mean, you're getting in probably less than 0.5% owned. It's Alejandro Del Rey.
I think he can surprise. Like,
yeah.
I genuinely do. We just get one of these guys at these kind of tournaments, and there is a certain element of throwing as many darts as possible and landing one, right? But he has the skill set of what we know. We'll keep coming back to this, of what we know a US Open to be. And as much as people are going to talk you out of it not being that typical thing this week, and I understand why, like, there's reason behind it, I still think the USGA is setting it up. I still think it's important. So, I mean,
and if people that are going to do that, they're going to play Wilco, and he's not going to be owned at all either. No. But Del Rey's had a substantially better year than Wilco.
Yeah, and he's just safer. Like, that's the main thing. Like, he just feels like he's not missing cuts. He isn't, like, I think he's actually a little bit more than distance. But I'm just looking back to like last year. I mean, let's give Guido his weekly shout out. He was 14th at the US Open.
Yeah.
Minwoo Lee was 27th. Todd Sinnott 31st. Like, Callum Tarrant was 31st before he was really doing, pulling up trees on the PGA Tour. Like, you're gonna get these people because the tests are so difficult, and it does bring it to the fore. I mean, just going back to 2021, there's Guido again, by the way.
Guido won won someone $1 million that week, or would have been enough. Yeah, he was in the optimal lineup.
Yeah, like, who? I guess you go to 2021. It's a little bit harder, but you had Eduardo Molinari 35th, Wade Ormsby 40th. Like Charles Schwartzel, 19th. I guess probably a PGA Tour guy more than anything. But these guys do matter, and they are going to be. You are going to need some of them because talking about DFS from a macro sense, like if you want to play Scotty Scheffler this week, you've got to dig down here.
Yep.
Like it's really, really hard unless you want to skip anyone in the 9 and 8s, which is scary. You need to find people that you like down here to couple with them. So yeah, I think it's important. 2020 US Open, Paratore and Lucas Herbert 31st. Like that's all we're.
Piers was up there, Peter's cheap that week.
Noren 17th. Yeah, like these are the people we're advocating for, and this is what the Ryan Foxes of this world fit into. So I think you've just got to you've got to manage expectations. Like we're not sitting there saying that. I guess Mimu Lee and Ryan Fox maybe a top 20, top 30 equity. The others are potentially just cut makers. I know you're going to bet top 20 on Larafabal, but if you just want someone who's going to spike with a really good round, then I think we've mentioned some really good names.
100%. No, very excited for this week. It's my favorite major of the year. But we'll be back next week as we get into the DP World Tour swing. Right, we're back in Germany, BMW International next week, and then that's followed right. We get into the British Masters right after that, and then before that will be the Open Championship. So very excited for the stretch we have today and beyond. So thank you as always, Tom. Appreciate you guys listening, and let's hope we get a major winner from one of our guys. Let's shock the world. All right.
That would be great. Good luck, everyone.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Good luck, everybody.